Welcome to another edition of the Woodshed, brought to you by grooveu. My name is Sterling Brusvold. I am an audio engineer and studio owner here in Columbus, Ohio, and I also teach audio engineering and video at grooveu, which is why I'm here talking to you today. This week we are focusing on interactive content, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about streaming. This is going to be sort of a maybe beginner's guide to getting into live streaming because it is so popular right now and is probably only going to continue to increase in popularity as more and more people get access to internet connections and have cell phones with them. There is a massive audience that is ready to receive content right now. And so if you can get in, even if it seems like it might be overwhelming and there's so many people doing it, that's very true. But there is also just as many people who are ready to consume that content as there, and that certainly far outweighs the number of people trying to get into live streaming or broadcasting. So there's a couple of things I would like to talk about. Dealing with the quality of our stream, both from an audio standpoint and a visual standpoint. Talking about choosing the content that we want to go for, and then choosing the platform and the program that we're going to use to broadcast onto that platform. When we think about broadcasting, there are a number of things that we can run into, particularly when we talk about the quality of the two things that are a part of broadcasting in this way, which is, again, audio and video. From an audio standpoint, many live casts are not very well done. Most people are doing some of this stuff from their phones or their webcams, which have reasonable microphones on them, but aren't necessarily all that great. And in particular, folks are not necessarily choosing the best environment to be in. We can make some decisions around our house about the environment that we are doing our cast in order to get a better result. So especially if we're talking about being a musician, say if you're a singer-songwriter, then just sitting down in your bedroom and popping your cell phone up and singing a song is wonderful. It's great that you want to get your content out there. It's just not very thoughtful. So one of the things that you can do to set yourself apart from other artists that are doing these kinds of things is to really take some time to go around the house or apartment and really think about the area that you're in, listen to it, do a couple of test recordings, and figure out the best space that you can find within your environment in order to do the cast from. If you don't have a particularly really great space and you have a lot of sort of echo and what they call sort of slap back in the room that you're in, then you can do a little bit to maybe set up some different blankets and pillows around you that aren't seen on the camera but can help control that audio environment a little bit more and stop some of that bad audio from coming back into your microphone. This is really important, especially when you're talking about using just a webcam microphone or a cell phone microphone, because those microphones have built-in compression in them, which allows the audio level to be captured properly. But one of the caveats, one of the sort of drawbacks of that is that it brings background noise up. So try not to be doing these casts right next to an air intake vent or a heater vent, and you want to try and control your environment as best you can. The next thing that we can do is add microphones into the situation in order to capture better audio. There are lots of different desktop USB-powered microphones and sort of cheaper live microphones that you can get. Even if we were to add, say, a second microphone on top of the microphone that we already had and brought that into our broadcast, we're going to be in a much better situation. So if you were to get something, say like an SM57 or an SM58, and you're a singer-songwriter and you put one microphone on your vocal and one microphone on your guitar or whatever instrument it is that you're playing, you've sort of expanded yourself far beyond someone who's just throwing up their webcam or their cell phone to capture the audio. I, as a professional audio engineer and recording engineer, would tend to try and stay away from the USB-based microphones. Although they do a fine job, it's not really a way to sort of set yourself apart from other folks who are content creators. So I would try and go a little bit further than that. You can spend as little as $100 to get a reasonable microphone. I have here with me to show you one of the most popular broadcast microphones out there. You probably see these in lots of people's podcasts and different broadcasts from radio stations. This is the Shure SM7B. This is a $400 microphone, which is a little bit expensive, but for what it provides you as far as quality of audio, this is something that you really can't go wrong with. You do need to have a reasonable preamplification unit on whatever your audio interface is, so you have to have something that can provide a good level, because this is a very quiet microphone because it's passive. But one of the nice things about microphones like this is that they have a lot of side rejection, and they only capture sound coming into the front of the microphone, which allows you to sort of escape the situation that you might have where your walls are bare or you don't have any control over your sound. You don't necessarily have to spend $400 on something like this. You can find these used now and then and pay less than that. When you're out there searching, make sure that you try and find something that has a focused audio field and isn't capturing everything around you, especially if you don't have a way to sort of control your environment. That brings me to having an audio interface beyond, say, your cell phone or your webcam. So one of the best ways to do this and most mobile ways to do it is with a small interface. This is the Focusrite 2i2. It's just two inputs with one output. It's powered by USB, so you don't even have to have a plug. You can plug it right into your laptop and run it from there. So we could put a microphone for our voice in here, and we could also, say, take a pickup from a guitar and plug it right into this and have access to the preamp in here to give us level. These are very, very cheap, about $160, I think, and you can probably find them for even less than that used on places like reverb.com. It's incredibly light. I mean, I don't even know if it weighs 2 pounds. And so not only is it able to be moved around your home or your apartment or wherever you are, but also something that you could take with you if you're going to do a cast somewhere besides home. If you can add a couple of different audio sources to your cast with some reasonable microphones, again, without breaking the bank, you're going to be able to set yourself apart from other performers. When we sort of push past that, I think audio is the biggest thing. Especially if you're going to be performing songs. I really can't stress this enough. I watched so many streams recently that are just horrendous from even really, quite good artists. And really it just shows that people aren't taking the time to stop and think about this kind of thing and really think about what it is that they're providing to their audience. I think that if you can focus on that quality, you're going to be able to, again, distinguish yourself from other people. So beyond that, if we move past the audio and we talk about the visual, capturing the proper image is really important, even if you're just doing it from your cell phone. So a couple of weeks ago, another instructor here, Josh Howie, talked about how to capture better visuals with your cell phone. So if you want, you should go back and watch his video. He will go into much greater depth than I'm going to go into. But I do want to say that lighting is one of the most important things in order to allow the camera and the lens that it has, whether it's a dedicated camera, a webcam, or the camera on your cell phone. Having enough light coming into the camera itself is very, very important to get a high quality image. So there are some light kits that you can buy online, and there are different LED lights and things that you can get for as low as $20 or $30. And then there's some kits that you can use that would normally be used for, say, video production or photography, $120, $150 to get yourself a reasonable setup. If you don't have access to those kind of funds and you can't take the time to do those kinds of things, then simply gathering a couple of lights around from around your home and bringing them into the area that you're going to be casting from, and then also setting up the area that you're going to be in. So not only do we want to be thinking about the area that we're in from an audio standpoint, but we also want to think about what does this look like visually. I see lots and lots of people sitting on their bed in their bedroom with a white wall behind them. They're not really thinking about the environment in general and what it looks like. So if you can take a little bit of time and think about your broadcast the same way that someone might say a movie set, you could take a little bit of time to do what we call propping, which is to take different items from your environment and put them within the frame of your camera so that the image looks a little bit more interesting than if it was just you and the wall. So if you had an extra guitar or something, you could prop that up next to you. You could get some plants or different things. Luckily, I'm in a studio here, and so I have gear and things around me that make the image a little bit more interesting. You do want to make sure that those images, the things that you bring into the image aren't distracting, but anything to make it a little bit more interesting than just being the white wall is pretty important, and I see this a lot in live streams. So when we bring light into the situation and we sort of play around with that light and see how our camera reacts, we can get a much more interesting image that has some shadows and some depth. And again, if you go back to the video that Josh Howie did, he gives a fairly in-depth view at what lenses do and how they capture information. So if you combine that with some of the things I'm talking about now, you'll be able to get a good result even if you're just casting from your phone. Please make sure that you take the time to do these things, both from an audio standpoint and a visual standpoint. Once we get into the actual broadcasting onto the platform that we have and the different programs that you can use to go onto those platforms, there are some additional things that you can do there. Many of the programs that interface with the platforms that you broadcast to allow you to do color correction, deal with contrast and exposure, tell your camera how and where to focus, and so on and so forth. And if you take a little bit of time to do all of those things and balance things out and be creative, you can get a much better broadcast than the average person is getting. Now, we do not have to only be doing music broadcasting. I'm focusing on music because that's what grooveu is focused on, is the music industry, but you can cast really anything. Many of the platforms like Twitch and things like Mixer tend to focus on video games, and you can certainly do those things. But even within those communities, there is a really wide variety of people who do crafting, people who draw and paint live. There are people who do podcasts on Twitch and Mixer. There are people who do singing and songwriting and so on and so forth. When we talk about what we're doing, don't just grab your phone and start casting. Think about the thing that you want to focus on, what material it is that you want to cover. Really focus on coming up with a solid and precise idea about the information that you want to get out to your audience. If you just turn your phone on and start broadcasting, you may be able to get an audience, but you're probably going to have a hard time getting traction. So when you are considering doing this, make sure that you take some time to think about what it is that you want to talk about. Take some notes. Try a couple of test broadcasts and see how it comes across to other people, your family, boyfriend, girlfriend. The more concise that you can be in telling your audience about what you're going to do and then sticking to that thing, the better response that you're going to get from folks. Now, once you figure out what you want to do, additionally on top of the focus that you might have, whether it's your songs or the art that you're making or whatever the case might be, you should try as hard as you can to provide as much value as possible for the people who are watching. So if I'm going to be streaming on a regular basis, that means that I might be inviting other artists onto my platform to come and talk about their experiences with streaming, really trying to dig into some additional information to allow people to learn from what you're doing, as opposed to just asking them to absorb only your content or listen only to your songs. I see that a lot of people make this mistake on social media, and this is no different. And that is that they sort of become totally focused on getting you or getting their audience to go and do a specific thing without really providing a great value or something that they can take and use in their own lives. So Think about inviting people onto your stream who are experts in the area that you're dealing with. There are lots and lots of people out there who are willing to come and do these kinds of interviews. And if you throw those kinds of things in every once in a while, invite your viewers on and chat with them about different things, get feedback from viewers, you're going to get a lot more traction, and you're going to be able to draw more folks in who may even be outside of your regular purview if you can take some time to think about those things. So the common thread here is taking a little bit of time and taking some care in thinking a little bit beyond, oh, just watch me, look at me. Moving beyond that, there are a number of different platforms and a number of different programs that you can use to broadcast onto those platforms. If you're just using a phone and you're doing something like Facebook Live, Periscope, which is going to broadcast out to Twitter, if you're doing something through Instagram Live, which is done through stories and can be put on IGTV, then that's stuff that can be done right on your phone and just requires the application that you have. But if we're using a laptop or a desktop, then there are lots and lots of different options, including all of those. But usually to get the best result, you're going to want to use some sort of a broadcasting program. So the most popular one that's out there that I know of right now is OBS. This is an open source software that is free to use. So as I was saying before, if you use this type of broadcasting software, you can do color correction on your image. You can put effects on your audio to make things more interesting. You can add reverb and delay to your audio sources, which especially when we're talking about singing can be very, very helpful. OBS is the easiest one because it's free. It's a very simple user interface, but there are a bunch of different programs for this. There are 6 or 7 major ones. Another one that I have used a couple of times and find to be really great is XSplit. It's about $199 for a lifetime license to that software, but you can also do 3 and 6 month sort of leases of the software if you're just trying to dip your toes into streaming. Using that to get out to the platform, you can be out on YouTube, of course, is one of the most popular ways to go live. Facebook Live has been around for quite a while. As I said, Periscope through Twitter. There is Twitch and Mixer, which is Microsoft's version of Twitch. Both of those are somewhat focused on video games and have built-in audiences for those things. But again, there is a massive variety of people who are broadcasting to these platforms. And so you shouldn't be afraid to use them, especially because they have a built-in audience that's always there and searching around for new content to absorb. And you sort of have this, captive group of people who are actively looking for ways to be entertained. And again, does not just have to be video games. LinkedIn has its own broadcasting platform now. Of course, much of LinkedIn is business focused. And so if that's something that you're going to be doing where you're talking with different individuals who have expertise in different business areas or whatever the case might be, doing some sort of like a live podcast, LinkedIn might be the better space for you. One that I do want to talk a little bit about because it's something that I've become familiar with recently that a lot of people don't know about is called Crowdcast. And Crowdcast is a platform that touts itself as a place for content creators, especially musicians, to do live concerts and things like that. The best thing I find about Crowdcast compared to almost every other platform is that it's 100% web-based. So it does not require the end user to download any kind of a program or application in order to view things properly. It can simply be done through a web browser. This is really, really great for folks who don't have administrator access to their computers. This is a pretty common problem with people who are in higher education and in high schools who have computers that are sent home with them or tablets, and they don't necessarily have the freedom to install any program that they want onto their computers. Crowdcast is a really great option because all you have to do is have access to a web browser and you can participate. Crowdcast includes the ability to get paid, so you can sell tickets to your concert, or if you're doing something like, say, a yoga class on a regular basis, you could do a monthly price. They take a small fee for that, as most places do, and you can also include, I think, some tip jars, and there are a couple of different platforms that allow for these kind of things. So not only is this a way for you to get your content out there, but if you can establish yourself, you may be able to make a little bit of money getting subscribers or selling tickets to whatever it is that you're doing. If you use a platform like Crowdcast or some of the others that are out there, those platforms also allow you to broadcast out to multiple social media sites. So if we were, say, using Crowdcast, we could also have our cast simultaneously go out to Facebook Live and Instagram and so on and so forth. There are lots of folks who are super focused on different social media areas, and they may have multiple followers that are following them for different reasons. And so the ability to get to all of these is pretty valuable. To sort of recap, the three things that we want to be thinking about is the quality of what it is that we're trying to do. So that includes both audio and visual. Please take care when you're thinking about that, and take some time to set some things up for yourself. Deal with your lighting. Make sure you have a reasonable microphone. What's my environment? What are the things that are around me? How do I make it as visually pleasing as possible, and how do I capture the best audio that I can, even if I'm just speaking, right? Because we want people to be able to hear and understand what we're talking about, especially if that's the only thing that we're doing. But then when you think about what it is that we're going to be putting out there, the content that we're doing, this is also something that requires some care. If we think about that and we tell folks what it is that we're doing and they know what to expect, it's easier for us to advertise and brand these things, which is something that you can do as you get a little bit deeper into things. You can start promoting these events ahead of time, come up with branded content, small intro videos that you can have it be a part of your broadcast, so that it becomes something that feels a little bit more polished, like something that you would see, say, on network television. And that is something that anybody can get to with a little bit of practice. And then the thinking about where we want to do these things. So there's lots of options for where we want to broadcast on the internet, and then there are a number of options for the different programs that we can use to push that broadcast out, both on our phones and on our desktops and laptops. And you can certainly go to all of them, but again, if we stop and think about our audience and what it is that we're trying to get across, there may be some spaces that are better for you to use to get to the audience that you're looking for. For instance, if you're playing video games, the better place to go is probably a place like Twitch or Mixer, maybe even YouTube. But we probably don't necessarily want to be broadcasting our video game content to LinkedIn, right? Not to say that you couldn't, but so think about what your audience is, the material that you're trying to get out there, and then make the right choice as far as your platform is concerned. And of course, if you already have followers on something like Instagram or Twitter or whatever, then again, you may be able to make a decision about where you want to broadcast based on that. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, we'll have links below in the description of the video for folks to be able to check out. And we'll be doing a live Q&A at the beginning of next week. So tune in for that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have. And I appreciate you guys tuning in.